Welcome back to WagerTalk TV. I'm Ralph Michaels, joined in studio by Tony Finn and Mr. Dave Cokin. Kelly has other obligations this week, so Marco and I will be hosting this videos. Please stay tuned. You can look at Kelly next week, but all kidding aside, you know, baseball's around the corner. Spring training, I know a couple of our guys, Brian and Marco, going down to watch some games next week. You may partake.
I might get down there the next week, hopefully.
You know, the win totals are now out. I know South Point posted them and a few other casinos posted them. Dave, tell us how you handle over-under win totals this early in the season. Can you make your bets now? Do you wait till everyone's signed?
No, I've already made three, and I'm going to talk about one of them today because it kind of keys into things that I look for. First thing I'm looking for is teams that either overachieved or underachieved dramatically in 2018. And the way you do that is by looking at runs scored versus runs allowed, record in one-run games, and sizing up maybe whether there were career years by more than a couple of guys in the case of a team that did really well. And I'll give you a good example. The Brewers had a dream season last year. I mean, everything went right for Milwaukee. Despite the fact that the starting pitching was ordinary, these guys kept pitching him into the 6th and 7th innings on a regular basis. The bullpen was absolutely sensational. Yelich is legit. I mean, he is absolutely a great player. I'm not quite as sold on some of the others who had really big years last year. Brewers had a record of about 650, a little better than that actually, in one-run games. So they're a team that looks to me to be primed to regress some this year. You're talking about a rotation that the 5 starters are pretty much about the same, but there's no real standout. I mean, Ulyss Chacin looms as their #1 starter right now. Well, Chacin's clearly not a #1 starter. Bullpens can be volatile. As good as their bullpen was last year, and you look at Hader and Jefferson, you think, boy, there's no way these guys are going to be great again.
See Andrew Miller if you're an Indians fan, right?
Yeah, it's not always. Bullpens are really volatile from one year to the next, and there's no guarantee. And Hader was so good last year, I don't know if he could duplicate that. I think there's a lot of room for regression here with the Brewers, and they're in a very tough division. Cubs are going to be good. Cardinals are going to be good. The Reds are improved. The Pirates will be respectable. I don't think they'll be contenders, but they're not going to be a terrible team. The total reflects this, okay? I'm seeing as low as 86.5. Caesars had the best number for my liking, which is 87.5. I know the Brewers won a lot of games last year, and I think they'll still be a respectable team, but I put them more in the low 80s this year, and I think at 86.5, 87.5, under is a good bet.
Tony, let me tell you one thing. Well, I went through the South Point numbers, and I do this for a lot of sports every year, and I'm not into betting baseball futures, but there's 2,460 games. The South Point's opening numbers only had 2,443 wins. They were 16.5 wins to the under, giving over better values. So, again, most of the time, places slant the over because that's what publics are going to bet the over teams. But I was amazed that the South Point had that many games under the total.
I'll tell you why, real quick, and then I'll let Tony jump in. Because the really bad teams are being perceived as really, really bad teams who have no intention of trying to win. You can look at 3/5 of the NL Central or AL Central and say those teams aren't going to try to win, and that influences bettors' perspectives, and therefore you got to make some lower numbers.
Yeah. Tony, your thoughts?
It's difficult to be, at least the last pair of seasons, it's been difficult to be optimistic and confident going into betting MLB future, especially team wins, simply because of the late signings of the free agents. Now, not that one person, not one player is going to make that huge a difference, but there are a few players and even a few pitchers that would significantly make me alter a team total. But for the most part, I focus on two parts, two key ingredients, and much like Dave explained, that's hitting and bullpen. Pitching period is volatile, but the bullpen's a little more stable. If you have a deep depth, or you have some depth in the bullpen, then you have the ability to win some games that you might not with teams that don't have bullpen, especially with the new trend of the opening starters, where managers are actually using 5 relievers as opposed to a starter, which makes it difficult for a lineup too. And hitting depth, if teams that we looked at won last year, the Yankees, let's be honest, they had a pretty mediocre pitching staff. Even the Red Sox were mediocre as a starting staff, you know, and the bullpens were strong, but both those teams could hit. One of the focuses I'm going to put on this year is, and I haven't done made any wagers, haven't made any investments in that at all, is lineups that have hitters that can make contact, with home runs and strikeouts being really the home runs decreasing the last couple of years, at least last year significantly. Let's go back to, I think, the 15 Royals, who didn't hit a lot of home runs, who had pedestrian starting pitchers, but had 3 pretty good bullpen arms and a team that had some speed and made contact and put tons of pressure on opposing defenses.
Pressure on the pitchers, pressure on the catchers.
Correct.
Again, and the end-all shop, Dave already talked, there's a whole game value from one casino to the other. As these casinos open them up, make sure you're checking all the outs you have to get the best value. Great stuff, guys. We appreciate it. This video brought to you by the WagerTalk Text Club. Johnny does an amazing job. You sign up. It's absolutely free. Plus, you get a $10 bonus. Text 33222. You'll be signed up, and you'll be getting free plays from our man, Johnny Detroit Daily. Appreciate it. We're back with more WagerTalk videos.